Hello, I'm Ron Wirtz, editor of the Fed Gazette. The newest issue of the Fed Gazette explores the issue of green jobs. What got us interested in this topic is the fact that there's a lot of attention and analysis on green jobs right now. And given the sluggish economy and very high unemployment, many are making the argument that green jobs are not only good for the environment, but also good for the economy in terms of job creation. So we wanted to take a closer look at that. The definition of green jobs is very wide and it's pretty subjective. Generally, green jobs focus on energy efficiency, reducing waste and pollution, and creating stuff that is environmentally beneficial or at least more benign than their predecessors. But there's a lot of gray area when it comes to defining green jobs, and that tends to influence any projections that you want to make regarding the future of green jobs. The promise of green is really easy to see when you see all the wind turbines going up across the country and in the 9th District. It's really easy to recognize the economic activity that's taking place. Someone is manufacturing all the pieces that go into that turbine. Most of the production actually is taking place in this country and often even in the 9th District. And the power that's being generated is being used by local homes and businesses. It's cleaner energy, and it gives the impression that we're maybe a little less dependent on fossil fuels, and particularly oil from countries that maybe don't think very highly of the U.S. All of those things are correct, at least to some degree, but the hype probably enters when people take that fairly simple example and extrapolate a pretty extravagant future outcome for anything having to do with a greener, less carbon-intensive economy. And unfortunately, it's not that simple. For example, people don't recognize that a wind turbine does create jobs, but utility sources tell us that on a per megawatt basis, more permanent and construction jobs are generated by new fossil fuel power plants. That's on top of the fact that wind power also costs more at the retail level, though it is becoming more cost competitive. Now that doesn't make wind turbines bad, but it does require us to be more careful about what we expect from a green economy, particularly if we're talking about job creation. The problem behind a push for green jobs is determining what is and is not a green job. Now, there's no widely accepted definition, which means many analyses get to create their own definition. Most are pretty subjective and ultimately pretty broad. Some, for example, might consider any job with a hint of green as a full-fledged green job. So under that scenario, all electricians might be counted as green jobs because some, probably a small minority, install solar panels. One current definition of green jobs by the Bureau of Labor Statistics says that small arms ammunition manufacturing is considered green simply because they are phasing out lead in bullets. Most green jobs also aren't that new. They involve existing jobs that evolve to include some green aspects, say the electrician that learns how to install a solar panel, or a builder who is incorporating more energy efficiencies, say in a new home. Those aren't necessarily more or new jobs in those particular sectors, just electricians and builders with new skills. There also isn't much consideration given to costs or employment trade-offs related to a greener economy. For example, from an economic development standpoint, we should be most interested in net new jobs. And many reports on this topic don't typically consider jobs in other sectors that are, say, lost or not created. Here's one example. Green energy is still more expensive than traditional fossil fuel, and all other things being equal, higher energy costs from renewable energy will have a dampening effect on employment. Now again, that doesn't make green energy bad, but we have to at least acknowledge these trade-offs, especially where public policy starts to get involved. Projections themselves are not a problem, but job projections tend to influence policymakers to create all sorts of programs and incentives that try to promote or to encourage or lure green jobs from elsewhere. The first problem is that green jobs are not likely to be as plentiful as some believe. Most careful analysis, like those, say, from state labor departments, suggest that green jobs might be 2% or so of all private non-farm jobs. Now, those are important jobs for sure, especially in today's economy. And that sector appears to be growing faster than other sectors. But green jobs are not likely to have a major or immediate effect on high unemployment. Arguably the bigger problem, though, is the multitude of green policies and programs coming from every level of government right now. In essence, we're hoping environmental policy, remember we're doing green in the first place to try to reduce greenhouse gases and other pollution, and we're hoping that environmental policy can do double duty by also creating jobs. Unfortunately, most policy of that nature is ill-suited to do either of these things very well. The track record of incentive programs for generating net new jobs is poor. Maybe worse, most green programs aren't going to be as good at achieving the environmental goals we want compared with a more direct approach like carbon taxes. So sort of ironically, a lot of current policy that hopes to reduce emissions and create green jobs probably does a poor job at both.